Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May edition of the Forest Park Chamber of Commerce, May 2014. Welcome all of you. We have a nice turnout today for lunch, and hopefully you all enjoyed our lunch, which was catered by our member Hammond's Catering, and they're down on, I guess it's Old Mill, if you keep going down Mill, where it changes into Old Winton and all that, but that's where Hammond's is. And they have a special gift for our speaker, so we'll wait till the end so you can have something if you like lunch today. And then and our desserts were here from another member, Waycross Road, Libby's Gourmet Desserts. Dave Zenny is in attendance. They have no calories, Dave said today, so he's taking them all out. Last month we had our economic forecast, so hopefully that made the weather change and made us all see that we have the great economy. And now this month we are lucky to have our football forecast. So we're going to have warm weather, but we're going to be looking into the cold. So I'd like to say we've got a lot of people in the audience today, and a lot of people who are active in the chamber. So if you have any questions or anything, if you want to talk to a board member, you can have board members all real quick. You can raise your hands and say, I'm a board member. There's a lot of us, but and another person that we have in attendance today is a former mayor of the city of Forest Park. And we'd like to acknowledge that he is here, Brandon Weirs, former mayor. Thank you for being here. Real quick, a little bit more business before we get started with the Bengals talk. We have a meeting on June the 10th, and this might be something that you all want to attend. We probably are not going to be here. Paul Brehm is not here today, but he was working on getting us to have the meeting out at Meadowlink Academy, the golf academy right there. In June, we usually do kind of a picnic and a warm-up for the pro from the mill comes here for a warm-up for our golf outing, which is on July 16th at the mill course. And he usually gives us some type of instruction that day. Last year, I think we do putting last year. So we'll move into maybe long drives this year. Maybe we'll get into some kind of long drives with the chipping area, because I think up at Meadow Lake they have a nice chipping area. So that's what Paul was thinking. So watch your emails and your newsletter for that information. And then July 16th is our golf outing, and Lisa Youngblood is here, and Ken O'Brien somewhere. Where is he?
I just saw him.
Right there, right here. They are in charge of our golf outing this year. They would love for you to play or sponsor, and we are the best deal in town. Golf outing hasn't changed price in forever, and you get all kinds of great things, and you get red teas and mulligans and everything all put in there. We have lunch and dinner, and we give away our scholarships that evening. So it's a great time. We usually have no rain if Paul Brehm is in charge of the weather, and we'll make sure he is. So
And they can sign up by going to our...
you can sign up by going to the website. You can sign up for everything online, or you can send it in, whichever is easier for you. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker. He probably doesn't need too much introduction. He looks like he is a football player. I did not play for the Bengals. Been watching the Bengals since I was born. My mom and dad had tickets on the 50-yard line at Nippert. So, Mr. Lapham started his football career as a Bengals offensive lineman from 1974 to 1983. He was drafted in the third round of the 1974 NFL draft out of Syracuse University, and he's played in. Oh, you played in the Super Bowl.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I did.
And in Super Bowl in 1981, and he is in his 29th year consecutively as being the analyst, and you also do Big 12 college games, which I think is important right now, right? I
For
have
the
a
draft?
question for you.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
With the draft.
Okay.
And so we are glad to have him here today, and he will talk about the draft and answer questions for you. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lapham.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it. We just finished up with the draft, obviously for this season. A little bit different this year. The draft was a little bit later. It gave people a little bit extra time to study and work players out. And I think, honestly, I prefer the old way. I don't think that you need all that time to make evaluations on players. Back in the day, right after the college all-star games, they'd conduct the draft. But now it's such a mega deal. I mean, the National Football League is $10 billion industry, basically. So the NFL draft gets huge numbers. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, any one of those days, particularly primetime Thursday, Friday, they get audiences that are bigger than audiences for World Series baseball, the actual game. So the National Football League is the number one sport in the country by far. Maybe baseball, I guess, could still claim to be America's passion, or pastime, I should say, but football is America's passion. Because when you do all the research that some of the companies do, the National Football League is the most popular sport in the country by far, by a huge number. And college football has actually worked its way past Major League Baseball as well. Then the NBA and others follow. So the National Football League, they want to try to keep their product as year-round as they possibly can. And by staggering the draft into May, moving it back a little bit, it accomplishes that. The Bengals, I think, a lot of people, not just locally, but a lot of people around the country that I've talked to, feel like the Cincinnati Bengals had another very, very solid draft. So this is 6 years in a row that the team has gotten value in a lot of their selections. And this year was a big factor in that regard. Denard, the cornerback that they got in the first round, the Bengals had him on their board at number 8. Every team in the league puts together a player rating board. The Bengals are no exception to that. And say your top 50 players in the country, each team has their top 50. And sometimes that may vary a little bit. It may not be the exact same players if your scheme, if the coaches get involved and say, you know, this guy, so-and-so team may think that this is the number one cornerback in the NFL, but we don't play press, we play off coverage, or we play off, we don't play press. So based on the type of schematic that you run, sometimes players aren't as good a fit for one organization as they are for another. So you have to factor all that in based on what you see when you're evaluating that player when you set your board. And the board it doesn't matter what position you play. They're just putting their top 50 players in the country in terms of fit to their scheme and projection of transition to the National Football League from college football. So there were 3 cornerbacks that went in the first round. The Bengals had those 3 cornerbacks, numbers 6, 7, 8 on their board. 3 offensive tackles went very early. The Bengals had them 2, 3, and 4 on their board. So they had some position groups where the top 3 were very, very bunched up and clustered. So they had Denard as the number 8 guy on their board, the number 3 corner. They had the top 3 corners, 6, 7, and 8. So very, very tight. Almost flip a coin in terms of, you know, flavor of the month. You like this guy better than that guy. So they ended up getting the 8th player on their board at number 24. So when he was still on the board, when they were picking at 24, they had a need because they've got a little bit of age in the secondary. Terrence Newman will turn 36 during the course of the season. Leon Hall turns 30. Adam Jones he's 31. So they've got some age in the back end, and they had a need there. And this kid was in the top 10 of their board, and they're picking at number 24. So I know it's a young man's game, and then when you say 30 years old is old, I mean, it's crazy. It is a young man's game. I know, I saw your eyes getting big. I thought, yeah, I'm with you. But those careers are pretty short. The average length of an NFL career is 3.7 years, average player career. So it is definitely a young man's game. There's a lot of attrition with injury and all that goes into it. But there he was, and they were thrilled to jump all over him. Great player. The Jim Thorpe Award winner, best defensive back in the country by the season that he had at Michigan State. Mark D'Antonio ran a pro-style defensive schematic where he put his cornerbacks in one-on-one press coverage on an island out there all by themselves. Very few times did he have help with the safety over the top, and it allowed Mark D'Antonio to put extra people in between the tackle box and just blitz and do some exotic pressure packages and get after people. And they were one of the best defenses in the country, and he was basically, you know, the ringleader, big reason that they were one of those top defenses in the country. And he's a quality kid too. That's the other thing. No baggage with this kid whatsoever. If he had been selected, Roby was the next guy up, and he was rated on their board where they probably would have taken Roby. He's got a few more issues off the field, less disciplined in his life, let's say, than Denard is. So it worked out well that they were able to get Denard with that first-round pick. The second-round pick, Jeremy Hill, running back. People are like, why didn't they take Hyde from Ohio State? They had Hill rated higher than Hyde on their board. Very close, but they had Hill rated higher. Hill ran for average just under 7 yards a carry in the SEC, 6.9 yards a carry for the season. And he's the kind of back that can run you over and run away from you. And he also is a very skilled receiver, can catch the football. And Cam Cameron was down there as their offensive coordinator at LSU. He had been with the Baltimore Ravens. So he basically installed a pro-style offense that had Jeremy Hill doing blitz pickup things that translate very effectively to the National Football League. He proved he could do it. He wasn't squeamish about it. He'd stick his nose right in there and pick up those linebackers and other people that he had to take care of to protect his quarterback. And so they looked at him as a very complete back. They felt like he could make a few more people miss than Hyde. Hyde's a great runner, phenomenal runner. He was a little bit of his scheme, that zone read stuff, really gashed defenses, as well as their offensive line. Watching tape on Ohio State's offensive line, that was a darn good group. They were about as good a run blocking line as it was in the country, and a lot of times Hyde didn't have to make a cut until he was 3 or 4 yards down the football field. Hill had to make people miss sometimes a lot sooner than that because the SEC defenses, they get after the SEC offenses pretty well. In the Big Ten, there was a little bit of a disparity sometimes at the line of scrimmage. But with that said, they're both great players. They decided to go with Hill. They didn't think that Hyde nor Hill would be available to them when they picked. They thought the running backs were going off the board a lot higher in the second round than they did. When they all slid, Bengals were ready to take Will Clark, who they took in the third round, off the board in the second round. Their first 3 picks, they had in the top 25 players on their board. The year that A.J. Green and Andy Dalton were drafted, A.J. was the #1 player on their board. They got him at number 4. Andy Dalton was the 7th player on their board. They got him at 35. So they've had players fall to them. Sometimes, the old saying is, better be lucky than good. I say it's better to be both. If you can be a dose of both, that really helps you. So they took Jeremy Hill with that second-round pick because they didn't expect he'd be there. So they had him rated higher in the round that they took him. Then now, like I said, Will Clark, they were going to take him off the board in the second round. They put him back up there and said, we're taking the running back because he's higher on our board in terms of evaluation. And he took Clark in the third round. He was there for them in the third round. They were excited. So they got him a round later than they had him evaluated. Same thing when they got to their fourth round pick, Russell Bodine, big offensive center from North Carolina, they had him rated as a third round guy. So when they took Clark in the third round, they said, let's see if Bodine gets to the fourth because everybody's sliding and see if that slide continues accordingly because of a run on different positions. There he was in the fourth round. Jumped on him in the fourth round. So you don't want your board to, you want to set your board and let your board talk to you. Let your board speak to you. So they get to the fifth round. They have A.J. McCarron as the mid-third round guy on their board, the Bengals board. So you don't want your board to just talk to you part of the draft. You want your board to scream and yell at you the whole draft. So they said, hey, it doesn't matter what position he is. This guy we have a round and a half higher rating than he is right now on the board. They had him rated higher than Murray from Georgia, who went. Then they jumped all over A.J. McCarron. And it was a great prospect. Bring him in, develop him. And competition breeds comfort level. And competition breeds excellence. A repetition, I should say, breeds comfort level. Get him in, get him a lot of reps. Competition breeds excellence performance. So it doesn't matter what position in the National Football League, you should never feel like you've made it. There's no seat at the top of the ladder of success. Once you climb it, you don't sit down and rest. There's always somebody trying to knock you down. And there's The reason that the team has had some success the last 5 years, and hopefully this year as well, is that they've got an unbelievably deep roster. And when I talked to teams around the league last year, when I would travel to whatever city, I'd call coaches that I know on the staff or media members that I could trust that have been around for a while and that had talked to their coaches and asked the question, you know, what's the Bengals' strength? What are you hearing? Almost universally, man, roster depth. They get starters everywhere. They get starters that aren't starting. And, you know, there's a saying in the National Football League, when a guy gets hurt, next man up. And the Bengals had that next man up going on big time. And I don't even look at some of those guys as backups. To me, they're starters in waiting. Because you can only have 11 guys on the football field starting, quote, starting. But in today's football, there's so many packages and substitutions and, you know, third down running back, nickel packages, dime packages, 7 defensive back packages we used to call quarter packages. There are so many different packages in the National Football League on both sides of the football. You need 17 or 18 guys on both sides of the ball that you can put out there and finish a football game with packages that fit them. So you have to have depth in your roster, and you have to have versatility within the depth. So gone are the days where you had a backup right guard. Doesn't exist. If you're a backup lineman, if you're not a starter, you have to be able to play both guards or center in both guards. If you're a backup tackle, not starting at that point in time, you have to be able to play both tackles or be able to kick down inside and play guard and tackle. So a lot of times, some teams in the National Football League on game day, they'll only activate 7 linemen. So, you know, if you have the numbers dictate, if one guy goes down, say the center goes down and the right tackle goes down, if you don't have guys that can play those positions in their repertoire in terms of the 7 guys that are active for that game, you're going to be in trouble. So versatility of your ability is a big deal, and the Bengals have a lot of that going on too. When they bring guys in, they make sure that those guys have done more than one position in college, or that they feel that they project to be able to teach them to play more than one position. That was my one of the things that I tried to do. Paul Brown, when I first made the team, he said, you know, I think you got some football acumen. I want to give you 2 grades when I'm grading your tests on a weekly basis. The upper left-hand corner is going to be your grade for your assignments. Upper right-hand corner is everybody else's. I said, everybody? He goes, yeah, everybody. So I had to know what the quarterback was doing, receivers' routes, the depth of their routes, changes if the secondary rolled a different way, and he helped me big time. Helped me understand the game instead of tunnel vision on just what I was supposed to do. You know, if I pulled as a guard, was the center reaching, was the tackle blocking down, was the fullback filling, who was doing what I was doing when I vacated that spot? So he said, don't put blinders on and just think about what you're doing. See the whole thing, understand the whole concept of the play, and that helped me as a player. A couple of times in a couple of games during the course of my career, I had to play all 5 offensive line spots in the same game. So being able to do that, I know helped me. There's no doubt about it, and that's when I got my nickname, The Tool, because I could kind of be like an interchangeable drill bit, just kind of throw them anywhere, I guess. But I felt good about being able to do that. The coaches felt good about me being able to do it as well, and I think it helped me. And then it helped me to get into the broadcasting world because, you know, what I do, I don't watch the ball. When the ball's snapped, I watch as much of the field as I can, and all the action takes me back to the ball. My play-by-play partner, Dan Horde, he says what happened. My job's to say why it happened. I'm not going to say what happened again because he already said it. I don't want to say it again, so I'm not going to watch the football. I watch everything else. And along the way, I find out, you know, oh, boy, he missed that block. Well, that guy made a great play. And you find, and things happen that take you back to the ball, but then I know why the play was either successful or unsuccessful based on everything else that was happening around it. And it's great because, you know, television kind of will zoom in just on following the football in a tighter, and when watch the field, I get the whole panoramic view of the field and try to take advantage of that. This linebacker the Bengals got in the 6th round, Marquise Flowers, former safety at Arizona. The Bengals took the Steelers, I should say, took Ryan Shazier from Ohio State. Undersized linebacker, can really run. That's what this kid is. This kid's 6'2", 235, former safety, can really run, runs 4.5. Hasn't played as much linebacker as Shazier, so he doesn't really want to come downhill and stun people and put his hands on people and shock them and that sort of thing, but he'll get there. He sees the field pretty much still as a safety, but he does have great versatility in that area. He's going to be a real good special teams player. James Wright, they took a receiver in the 7th round, and he can play special teams as well. That was his big contribution at LSU, was a special teams guy. They didn't take a slot receiver that could do for the Bengals what Andrew Hawkins did, you know, getting vertical with all that speed. I don't have an issue with it, though, because you have Jeremy Hill and you have Giovanni Bernard. If I have those two, I put Giovanni Bernard in the slot. When Jeremy Hill is running the football, I'm not going to have Giovanni Bernard standing next to me on the sideline. I'm going to put him in the slot. He runs routes as good as a receiver, catches it as good as a receiver. He's a little water bug. So that little guy in the slot is going to cause nightmares for people, in my opinion. So I'd say, Gio, I'm going to take, let Jeremy take some pounding here in a couple of series. You're going to play that slot receiver and threaten people. And so that's, again, when you have football players that can give you diversity and versatility in what they can do, then you can not only are you in good shape in terms of dealing with injuries, but it allows your imagination to run wild. And Hugh Jackson's imagination is going to run wild. You have Mohamed Sanu, can play quarterback, and wildcat with Mohamed Sanu. Run a naked bootleg, have him throw the ball 25 yards down the field, then let him keep it and run for 9 yards. All of a sudden, the defense has to prepare for a lot of things when Mohamed Sanu's in the huddle. Where's he going to line up? He's going to line up wildcats. He's going to line up at receiver. Man, when Mohamed Sanu and Giovanni Bernard are in the, who's the receiver, who's the running back, who's the quarterback? I mean, you've got a lot of things going on. You make the defense apprehensive, get on their heels a little bit. So I really am excited what Hugh Jackson's going to be able to do with this football team. And when he was out in Oakland, they were amongst the league leaders in running the football. He was real creative with his running game. And I think he's going to be creative with it. I mean, he would pull his center guard in and tackle at the same time. And so big old Russ Bodine can run. The reason they took Russell Bodine, two things. Strongest guy in the combine. One of the tests is you lay flat on your back and you have 225 pounds on your chest, called the bench press. And you do it as many times as you can till failure. He did it 42. 42 reps. That's a beast. That big old man can throw big bodies around. And in the AFC North, you've got nose tackles like Haloti Ngata with the Baltimore Ravens, who's a freakazoid. And you got Phil Taylor up in Cleveland, another big old guy that can move and big strong guy. Bodine can neutralize those big people. The other thing, he's not just brawn, he's brains. He got a 31 or a 32 on the Wonderlic. So if you score in the 20s, you're doing well. You get up to the 30s, you're a pretty smart cat. So they feel real good about him being able to come up to the line of scrimmage in Pittsburgh or Baltimore when they're so loud you can't hear yourself think and you can't hear anything. And you have to recognize what to call and then communicate it immediately. And that's the key. You can't stand up there and think about it because everybody else is waiting for you to decide something. So you don't have 20 seconds to figure it out. You got to get up there and boom, get it communicated out so everybody can execute. And they feel comfortable about this big old guy doing that. He could be the starting center. This 4th round draft pick could be the starting center for the Bengals this year. Very strong possibilities of that. Pollock will play guardian center, probably start at one of the spots. Bowling's coming back from an ACL injury, so they don't have to force him back into the mix prematurely at the guard position. Bottom line is, the Bengals had themselves a very strong draft again, and as a result of the drafts, the good drafts that the Bengals have had over the last few years, we were talking before lunch, there's only 6 teams in the NFL that have made the playoffs 4 of the last 5 years. Cincinnati's one of them. Now, unfortunately, haven't won a playoff game. and that separates you from the other teams. They've won playoff games. The Bengals were in really good shape. They had a quarterback that was still on his rookie contract, and he still is at this point in time. It was a second-round pick. So economically, the Bengals did not have a big cap expenditure at quarterback. Neither did the San Francisco 49ers. Colin Kaepernick, second-round pick, still in his rookie contract. Seattle, third-round pick, Russell Wilson, still in his rookie contract. Those three teams were set up to make a run. Seattle and San Francisco ran. They got to the NFC Championship game. Seattle edged San Francisco and then won the Super Bowl, blew out Denver in the Super Bowl, as we saw. The Bengals were in position to do the same type of thing without a whole lot of money spent at quarterback. They had to spend a lot of money at other places. They extended Carlos Dunlap. They couldn't get Michael Johnson extended, but they got Geno Atkins extended. You know, they threw some money out there, extended players. So they were in position to make a run, and they didn't. And the players are sick about it because they were in position to make a run. And they had the home field advantage by winning the division. Everything was set up to win. But in Marvin Lewis's 5 playoff games, the team is 1 takeaway and 12 giveaways. Minus 11, you're not going to beat your local Pee Wee football team going minus 11. You can't do it. You have to value the football more. Possession of the football is paramount in playoff games. You can't give good teams extra possessions because they got there for a reason. They're pretty darn good. And the other thing that I think I love Jay Gruden. I love a lot of things that Jay Gruden did for the football team, but Andy Dalton was too big a volume thrower. Here's I was looking up some numbers here. When the football team under Andy Dalton at quarterback rushes 30 times or more, they won 21 of 24 games, 21-3. When Andy Dalton throws the ball 40 times or more, where did I have that number? Well, I got them 9-14 in division games and playoffs games on prime time. But when they throw the ball 40 times or more, they're something like 3-12. It's just the opposite. So, in my mind, everybody says that in this era of the National Football League, it's about throwing the ball. It is. You make big plays and score points. But who won the Super Bowl? Who got to the NFC Championship game? Teams that played big-time defense and ran the football. And then you supplement and complement it with a good quarterback. I've determined, after watching football for a long time, and even in this era of football, great teams win Super Bowls, not just great quarterbacks. If it were just great quarterbacks, Peyton Manning should have won by 30 points. Great teams win Super Bowls. I mean, look at the Miami Dolphins. Bob Greasy and Dan Marino are both Hall of Famers, but for different reasons. Bob Greasy was on the team that won the Super Bowl multiple times. Dan Marino only got to the Super Bowl once and lost it. Dan Marino, his numbers blow away Bob Greasy, but Dan Marino was not on as good a team with the Miami Dolphins as Bob Greasy was on. You know, and that team that went undefeated, last team to go undefeated in the National Football League. Earl Morrall played a lot of those games, 9 or 10 of those games at the quarterback position. Bob Greasy broke his ankle. He comes back and then he plays and wins in the Super Bowl. I mean, there are millions of examples of it. Great teams win the Super Bowl. So to me, I think continue to put weapons around Andy Dalton and don't make him be a volume thrower. Don't make him throw the ball 31 times in a quarter in a playoff game like happened against the San Diego Chargers. The fourth quarter, he threw the ball 31 times. Are you kidding me? That's 124 throws in a game. You're not going to beat anybody doing that. And it's too hard on the lineman. So, you know, I really have belief that Hugh Jackson is going to try to get the offensive line and everybody involved in the running game to impose their will on people and be physical. Because if you can count on that every week, other things will fall into place. And you won't try to make your quarterback do too much. So I think that's going to be a big factor in this season. Looking at the schedule, 3 of the last 4 games of the season are against division rivals. That's where the rubber meets the road. The NFL made the last game of the week against a division opponent for a reason, to keep the interest high, you know, and keep as many teams' playoff hopes alive as they possibly can. Bengals play 3 division opponents in the last 4 games. Twice it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2 times in the last 4 weeks. So 5 of the last 10 games, they've got division rivals, 3 home, 2 away. 5 of the last 7 games are on the road. 6 of their first 9 games are at home. Got to make some hay at home to start the season. They've got, to me, one of the big factors in the season is going to be the last 3 weeks of November, where they go to Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, 3 straight weeks. Long road trips, having 3 road games consecutively in the NFL is tough. So from just about right before Thanksgiving to the end of the season, that's where the rubber's going to meet the road for this football team. That's where they're going to have to earn an opportunity to defend that division championship. So we'll see how all that unfolds. Just do want to remind any of you folks that I'm hoping that we do have some Bengal fans in the house. We do know that the Bengals do play 3 nationally televised games. They got a Thursday night game at home, primetime NFL Network on the 6th of November against Cleveland. Monday Night Football against Denver, Peyton Manning on December 22nd. They've got a Sunday night football game as well. So they hit the trifecta again in terms of nationally televised games, and it's an attractive schedule. So there are packages. You know, obviously we've got suites to sell, single game suites. If you want to take your company to a suite, great way to entertain your company and some key clients. Club seats available. They've also got season tickets in different packages. The black pack is Atlanta, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, 4-game pack. Pretty good little value. The orange pack, Tennessee, Carolina, Jacksonville, and Denver. And then they've got 2-game packages as well. Atlanta and Pittsburgh, Baltimore and Cleveland, Tennessee and Denver, Carolina and Jacksonville. So a couple of 2-game packages, or a few 2-game packages that are pretty good value as well. So there are tickets available, and Luke Kuechly comes back to town. St. X High School, went to Boston College, 1st-round pick, Carolina Panthers, and Panthers come to town. I know his dad pretty well, and I know Luke a little bit, and Luke was telling me when he first got drafted to Carolina, they asked Cam Newton to go pick him up when he came in to meet the media. And Luke kind of looks like Clark Kent Superman, you know. When he's not on the field, he's not a real big guy, and you know, he wears glasses and everything when he has his contacts out when he's not playing. And so he kind of looks pretty unassuming, and he's waiting outside the hotel that he's staying at for Cam Newton to show up. And he knows what Cam Newton looks like, but Cam Newton doesn't have any idea what he looks like. Cam Newton pulls up and drives through, takes another lap, and Luke's just kind of standing there, and he'd like come walking out, and Cam would just keep driving. And so finally, he came around like the 5th time, and Luke kind of waves him down and goes over to the car, and Cam goes, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "I'm Luke Kuechly." And Cam goes, no way. I'm bigger than you, and I play quarterback. And he is. I mean, Cam Newton's a lot bigger guy than Luke Kuechly, but sometimes it just goes to show you it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. And Luke Kuechly is a hell of a football player. I know we've got about 1 o'clock to where some of you folks, I think, have to go back to work. All of us have to pay the bills, right? But so I just wanted to throw it open to any questions at this point in time that anybody may have. Yes, sir.
2 things.
Yes.
Law firm done?
You know, I think so. And the way I would handle that, I'll let him decide. I really respect the law firm, and he's never caused anybody an ounce of trouble. And I don't think he will anyway.
Sure.
But he knows. Giovanni Bernard showed that Giovanni Bernard should take the balance of the snaps anyway. So, I mean, you have the law firm had a role in New England where it was limited.
Right.
Came here, was the man. Draft Giovanni, his role is going to reverse back to limited. Now you draft another running back in the 2nd round. He knows his role is even limited more, potentially. So I think he's done enough for not only the Bengals, but his career in the National Football League to sit him down and say, you call it. If you want us to let you go now, and you want time to, work the league as best you can and find your best situation, the one that you like best, that you want to go to, we'll do that. If you want to stay and compete, and if somebody gets hurt, you feel comfortable with, competing, and it might not work out, we may have to let you go on the last cut, and then, your chances minimized a little bit of catching on somewhere, but it's your call. And I would allow him to make that decision. I think he deserves it, and I think he's earned it.
What was the take downtown of the happenings in Cleveland? Were they chomping at the bit to get hold of Johnny Manziel?
No, they weren't jumping at that. They weren't going to be jumping at that opportunity, if it is an opportunity. I mean, Johnny Manziel is a huge lightning rod. Johnny Manziel to me is like going to Vegas and having 16 for 5 straight hands. What do? Do you hit it one time or don't you? It's like, man, he's just. I know one thing. He's difficult to prepare for. He's got some magic. There's no doubt about that. But I think in general, Ray Farmer deserves kudos. Ray Farmer abused the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills owner passed away. Ralph Wilson dies. So the guy who's the foundation, the staple, and the stabilization of the franchise, unfortunately, is 9 feet under. And Ray Farmer saw weakness. And what you have in Buffalo is everybody's panicking to keep their job. The grand poobah is gone. Who's going to own the team? Is the team going to go to Canada? Is the team staying in Buffalo? Nobody knows anything about Buffalo, what's going to happen. So Ray Farmer says, weakness. And he called that GM. That guy should have never made that trade. And Ray Farmer gets a first rounder next year and a fourth, I think. So, I mean, he's got 2 first rounders this year, 2 first rounders next year. I'm more impressed with that manipulation of the Buffalo Bills. He found a weakness, and Ray Farmer went after it. And I admire him for taking advantage of a weakness. So that's my take on what happened in Cleveland. Ray Farmer, good job by you, man.
I love that they drafted A.J. McCarron. Why did he not get rated higher? Is he another Tim Tebow, a great college quarterback, maybe not such a great pro quarterback? And 3 years down the road, if we still have both those guys, Dalton and McCarron, do you think McCarron has a chance of being the future?
That's to be determined. But he's not Tim Tebow. This guy's a quarterback.
Why was he rated so?
That's a great question. It's a great question.
He was a 4-year player.
Yeah, he was, and he was a 3-year starter. They won 3 national championships. One of them, he was a redshirt, but he won back-to-back. 77 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Makes good decisions. A lot of people, he had such a great team, great defenses, great running game. So he still has to execute. I mean, he took advantage of a situation, took advantage of an opportunity. I mean, that's what the Bengals are trying to build. A team with great defense, great running game, quarterback go in there and make plays, and don't make mistakes. Don't make mistakes that cost you a football game. Make big plays when the opportunity is there, but make sure you avoid the big mistake. And that's what he did. That's what he did at Alabama. Played for Saban, NFL guy. Played in the most physical, competitive conference in football, the SEC. Won huge, big number of games. So, I don't know. The rumor is that he rubbed people wrong in interviews, I guess, overly confident. I don't know. If somebody says to me, do you think you're a first-round pick? I wouldn't want a guy to say, I'm probably a 4th or a 5th round. I mean, what the heck, it's like, I want a guy to say, yeah, man, it's going to be the best pick you've ever made in your life, I mean, I don't know. I really don't. I know one thing. Kenny Anderson, my former roommate for 8 years and greatest quarterback in Bengals history, who, by the way, was a 3rd-round pick. Boone was the 2nd. 2 best quarterbacks in franchise history. They weren't first-rounders. He worked with McCarron for 2 or 3 months in the offseason, getting ready for the combine, and then after the combine, before the draft. He orchestrated his pro day. Kenny did. And he said, we knew that people were wondering about his arm. So he said, I ran no slants, no short stuff. I went all deep 17-yard comebacks, get the ball down the field, deep intermediate, left hash mark to right sideline when the ball has to be in the air for a while to show that the kid has enough arm. And Kenny goes, he's got plenty of arm. And if Kenny Anderson says he's got plenty of arm, it's good enough for me.
But even with the Bengals scheme of wanting to run the ball more, which I absolutely agree with, he might be perfect for that.
Yeah, that's what they did at Alabama. I mean, they ran the ball at Alabama, and to me, rumors are out there that Andy's got an attractive package to be, decided upon for an extension. If he decides not to do it, now he's got a little competition. If he decides to do it, he still has competition, but it may hasten the decision to sign it with he and his people, or it may not. But at least you got some insurance.